So my story actually from going to these conferences, I realize is not too unique to myself. But what I see is that I got a knock on my door, and sure enough, I open the door and there's Councillor Barry Straub. He planted a seed that day, and the seed was, "Hey, I've seen you online. I see how you answer people. You should run for council." And we had a chat, and at the time, I was like, "Do I want to? Is it something I could be good at? All that other stuff." I'm pretty young compared to what most counselors are, and talked over with the wife. It took me probably 2, 3 weeks to come to terms with it, and decided to make a go at it.
Welcome to Cross Border Interviews, the show where we dive into the insights of municipal political leaders from across Canada. Now, our mission on this show is quite simple. Shine a light on the dedicated individuals who day in and day out work around the council table to shape the communities that we call home. And joining us for today's episode is from Manitoba and the community of St. Francis Xavier, Councillor Bryan Syrenne. The arm of St. Francis stretches for some 40 kilometers along the north bank of the Assiniboine River, providing excellent fishing opportunities, kayaking, canoeing, and even boating. In addition, the municipality has two community clubs. Both clubs are host to a variety of social events and recreational programming. There are two municipal parks located within the village. The St. Francis Park has a ball diamond, a children's playground, and a picnic shelter. The Medicine Rock Heritage Park displays replicas of a Red River cart and a historical log cabin called the Breland House. Did you know that Manitoba's municipalities have a voice working tirelessly for them every day? That's the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, your trusted partner in advocacy and action. From local roads to economic development, emergency services to community planning, the AMM ensures municipal priorities are heard loud and clear. They work side by side with local leaders and municipalities, empowering them to tackle the challenges that matter most to their communities. At the AMM, they bring municipalities together, united on the key issues and stronger as a team. Together, they work to make sure your community's concerns don't just get heard, they get action. So whether it's building infrastructure, strengthening local economies, or shaping provincial and federal policy, the AMM is here to make municipal issues matter. The Association of Manitoba Municipalities, advocating for your community, making a difference for all Manitobans. Learn more about how AMM is helping your community at amm.mb.ca. Counselor, thank you so much for sitting down with me today to talk about yourself and talk about your community. Before we get to talking about your community, I want to talk about you and getting to know a little bit about the man behind the persona of counselor, if you don't mind. And I've got to ask the question I've asked every single person who's ever come on the show, including your own, I believe, mayor. And
Yep, brief.
yeah, Reeve. That's what I was double checking. I was like, is it Reeve or
Yeah,
Mayor? Reeve. Where did your sense of duty to serve your community come from, Bryan?
it's kind of a two-part question. The first part is my career of choice was a paramedic, so we have this duty to serve already there. And the second part was I had a presence online with the community groups. I would answer things as politically correct as I could. And at the time, I guess it caught the eye of the current councillor, which was Barry Straub of Ward 1. And he knew he wasn't going to run on this election. So my story actually from going to these conferences, I realize is not too unique to myself. But what I see is that I got a knock on my door, and sure enough, I open the door and there's Councillor Barry Straub. He planted a seed that day, and the seed was, "Hey, I've seen you online. I see how you answer people. You should run for council." And we had a chat, and at the time, I was like, "Do I want to? Is it something I could be good at? All that other stuff." I'm pretty young compared to what most counselors are, and talked over with the wife. It took me probably 2, 3 weeks to come to terms with it, and decided to make a go at it. So it's kind of where my passion came from, and it fits nicely with the duty to serve and talking to people, meeting people. It's just something I love to do. So it fits nicely with my personality.
Was politics something that you were interested in prior to that knock on the door, or had you
Yeah,
followed politics?
yeah, I follow provincial, federal. I didn't really follow municipal, to be honest. I kind of knew municipal, like I knew the extent of how much they affect us directly, but I always kind of trusted in who we had there. And St. Francis, I grew up here, so it's been a great community my whole life, and kind of just trusted people there. So I never got into it too much.
Was mom and dad political? Was it discussed at the
No,
dinner table?
no.
So are you the black sheep of the family, the
Yeah,
first elected
probably.
official
Yeah. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. My grandpa was about out in St. Stash for Cartier back in the day.
as a counselor
I
as well?
Yeah, I didn't find that out until after I joined. My mom didn't tell me until the day I became a politician.
Wow, there you
Yeah,
go. Following in
yeah,
grandpa's footsteps. So
certainly.
you are now last municipal election in Manitoba was 2022, if I'm doing my math here correctly.
Yeah.
So you're roughly about halfway through your first term.
Yep.
Is it what you expected?
Uh, yes. I would also say it's more than what I expected. The amount of professional growth and professional development and learning from the counselors that are there, like even the Reeve, he's been a great, for lack of like a mentor, I guess you could say. So it's been a great experience so far.
What's been the most eye-opening experience for yourself? Because as someone who followed politics, being on one side of the council table and then being on the other side is a completely different beast in itself. So for yourself, what was the moment you went, whoa, didn't expect this to happen?
I would say definitely preparing answers and thinking things through and taking time. Like as they say, politics goes at a glacial speed. So I think that was kind of my wow, was that okay, yeah, we need to slow down everything and really think out, because how you say something can be interpreted 15 different ways from 15 different people, and it's the same message. So
So, with that in mind, I can imagine you have come to the realization 2 years into your term that the decisions you make are very impactful on your community day to day.
for
And I
sure.
would even hazard a guess that that means that you have come to the realization that not everyone is going to agree with every decision you make.
Yeah.
How do you make, and I'm saying this just specifically for you because you are one vote on that council, how do you make the best decision in the best interest of the community, knowing that people may be upset with you?
For me, I always base my decisions on factors, right? So if I can defend it by logic, by law, by public opinion does matter somewhat. So like, you have to take that in consideration, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that vote us in. Um, just when you factor everything together, and does it move the community forward, or does it hinder, or will it cause drama or any of that stuff? You got that. That's kind of what I base my decisions off of.
Does,
So personally, it's kind of like a multi-factored approach.
does that come in conflict with yourself? Because you talk about community input, and community input is kind of important at the end of the day for a lot of decisions you have to make. But you also have your own internal morals and values that you hold dear to yourself. Who wins in that internal struggle in a counselor's mind, in your opinion? Is it the will of the people, or is it the will of what's in the best interest of the community, in your opinion?
Best interest of the community. Are you speaking of my opinion or community's
Yeah.
opinion?
So for your opinion, because you believe, because everyone has their own belief system and everyone
Yeah,
believes that they have the right vision for what the community
right.
is. But when you go talk to your community members, they're going to probably give you 10 different opinions on one
Yeah,
certain subject.
yeah,
So how do you balance all those different opinions to make that best decision internally? So that way, when you go out and talk to them, you say, we had to make this decision for the best of the community.
right. My opinion, I always put that at the back burner, because at the end of the day, my opinion is just one opinion. The opinion of the people mixed in with the opinion of the stats, the data, the law, and council as a whole. And the community moving forward. That's kind of what I base it off of. Because, like you said, I'm only one person at the table, and I don't want to be one person for the RM. I want to be representing my ward and my community. So it's a bigger picture for me.
And then on the flip side of that, because you are elected at a ward level in the RM, but you have to make decisions based on the entire community as a whole. And that means sometimes your community, your ward, may not get the full benefits of what you're voting on.
Yeah.
When you get sworn in, you're sworn in as an RM counselor, not a ward counselor.
Right.
You may have that placard, but you are still thinking about the community as a whole.
Yeah.
When you have those tough decisions and you have to go back to your residents who voted for you, do you have to explain to them that the decisions you make are not just for the people in your area, but for the entire community?
Yeah. Thankfully, we haven't had too many choices or decisions that
Well,
have affected the whole RM, but it's something, some things are coming down the line that is going to affect more than just one area. So, but even then, as long as I can defend it, like I said, through stats, data, or law, or vision of the RM, it's a super easy talk to have with people.
talking about the engagement of people, and I find this a lot in my conversations with municipal leaders across Canada, is there's kind of an apathy around municipal government in today's age. I even saw just recently a post that you posted on your Facebook page saying we want to get more people involved and get more opinions. So follow the social media page so that way you can hear from me and I can hear from you directly.
Yeah.
In your ward and even in the RM, do you get a sense that people understand what the municipality does and are engaged with what's the municipality's going on?
I don't want to speak for the whole community itself, but from my talkings of people in public, I'm going to say that people don't even know the difference between federal, provincial, or municipal. So I think it's from a grander picture, not my community specific, but people in general.
That's a Canada thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So that's why I was trying to get people engaged so that they do understand that there is more to federal and provincial politics, and municipal politics is very important because we have that day-to-day decision. So
So how do you work through that then? Because when you go out, you're an elected official 24/7, 7 days a week. Even in your full-time job, you are still a counselor. And I can
yeah,
imagine there's been times where people have asked you counsel questions while you're on your work job.
yeah.
So how do you engage with people and tell them, and I'm gonna sort of ask a stupid question here, but I think I have to, the role the province works deals with, the role of the federal government, and your role as a counselor. The average resident will come to you and say, I have an issue about education, I have an issue about healthcare, because I am more willing probably to get an answer from you than my MLA or my MP.
Yeah,
But you can't do anything. So how do you tell people it's not my responsibility without telling them it's not my
yeah.
responsibility?
So I've actually had a few people come to me with these kinds of topics, especially with highways, right? They want the
Major
highways
highway
cleared.
through you guys.
Yeah. So what I do with that is I actually just I have that chat with them, because a lot of times people just want to be heard. That's kind of their number one things. They just want to be heard. They want their voice out there. So I let them talk, and I say, okay, here's how you deal with this. And I explain to them the email to the minister that they have to talk to, or the department that they have to connect with, and go from there.
Do you think that's an appropriate answer?
It definitely helps them understand the difference between municipal and provincial. And from there, they at least know who to talk to next. If it's a big enough issue, I also bring it up in my members report.
Yeah.
And then from there, we might be able to put some pressure on the minister's office from a, like, hey, we're getting X amount of complaints from residents. So it's kind of like we're advocating for them at that point.
Before we turn to the community as a whole, I want to preface this question, and I want to say this. This next part of this conversation is a conversation between me and the counselor. This is not a motion of council, not a direction of council, not a
Yeah.
policy of council. He is one member on the council and he has one vote, the counselor who is sitting in front of me. This may line up with what's going on in the council chambers, but at the end of the day, it's still his opinion. With that being said, counselor, in your opinion, I want us to talk about the RM of St. Francis Xavier as a whole. What do you believe is the biggest challenge facing your community today?
Today, the biggest challenge would be the potential for growth. We have a couple of roadblocks set up. Our lagoons nearing capacity. So we need to address that. We need to address the way that we're expanding. so that we have like a continual growth, not development over there type thing. So we have to make sure that we're kind of growing in the right way. And then we have to keep our identity of St. Francis and not become Winnipeg or Headingley, right? So we have to balance the needs of residents with growth, with being a proximity to Winnipeg and making sure that people still want to move here.
I want to pick up on the Winnipeg thing in 2 seconds, but I wanted to talk about that issue. Do you feel, and I know you're just halfway through your term and this is your opinion, do you feel like you're doing a good job as a council in balancing all those aspects of the growth challenge that the community's faced?
I would say we're doing like we haven't had too many new developments come to us. It was the previous councils that had all the other ones. And so for us to say that we've done a good job, I mean, we haven't approved any major developments that isn't out of whack type thing. So as far as that goes, yeah, we haven't approved a development 10 miles out of the center of town. So that's a bonus, I guess. But it's going to be a tough goal forward. I think if I'm not mistaken, with the math that I was given, is that the amount of houses we have potential right now is going to max out our lagoon. So even if we wanted to, we have to address the lagoon before we address future developments right now.
And last time I checked, and I worked on a lagoon before left the municipal sector and started this. Lagoons don't cost they're not cheap in today's
No,
world, and that was about 8 years ago when I worked on that lagoon. How do you balance that big budget item? Because you probably see it every day as a counselor. People are struggling. People are
yeah,
the financial realities that we live in Canada right now. Manitoba is no exception. You will potentially have to ask people to pay extra 50, 60, $100 a month to replace that lagoon. How do you balance the future growth of your community with the economic realities of today?
I think that's going to come down to making sure that we have to look at the different plans, right? There's going to be different plans. Of one of them is partnering with neighboring RMs to have a facility. I think Headingley already has one.
Yep.
So sending everything to Headingley, and that's a forever treatment or forever plan. There might be other plans that we have to look at still. I haven't seen them yet, but balancing the now with the future and telling residents like, hey, $50 now or $100 in the future. I think that's the way you have to address it, right? Just yeah, it's painful now. Everybody's going through it, but this will future proof us if it's $50 now instead of having to readdress it in 15, 20, 30 years from now.
And while we talked about apathy in the last segment, in this segment, we're talking about the community. Do you get a sense that the community is like, yes, we want to see our community grow. We do want to see, because with growth comes lower tax rates, which means lower property taxes. And
Yeah.
last time I checked, everyone is okay with that.
Yeah. I think there's a balance though, because like I said, that identity, we got to figure out where the identity is for St. Francis and making sure that we stay within the right zone of what people want versus what I guess the province wants right now. Because we know that they want a certain type of growth too.
What would you say the identity of St. Francis is right now?
It's hard to say. Growing up, I would say it was definitely a bedroom community. People have lived here, slept here, and then went and worked in Winnipeg. You're finding more and more people living here, working from home, and living here and setting up shop here or setting up shop in a neighboring community. So it's changing. I would like to see it as a rich community that people don't have to run to Winnipeg for everything. I'd like to see more amenities closer to home and just people being able to say this is home. We stay home, we work home, we play at home.
Do you think so? Going back to the what I said I was going to hold off on, with your proximity to Winnipeg being so close, you're basically a hop, skip, and jump from Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Do you get a sense that because you are so close, developers, potential investors are saying, well, why don't we just invest in Winnipeg rather than 20 minutes outside of Winnipeg? Or do you get a sense that people are now looking at communities like St. Francis and saying, maybe this is where we should be investing because more and more people are moving to those rural outskirts rather than staying into the center urban cores?
Yeah. this will be maybe contentious, but
Do it. Do it. I love contentious on this show.
the crime rate in Winnipeg and the way that it is, I feel like is pushing people out. So I think that's, I don't want to say that's a bonus for us because I don't want to see crime, but
No.
it is definitely pushing people out of the city. And if we're not ready, if we're not prepared to accept that growth, then they're going to set up shop in other towns. So
So saying you're ready for growth. You're just waiting for developers to come knock on your door, then it
yeah,
sounds like.
yeah, we're willing and ready to talk.
Well, there you go. If you're a developer in Manitoba or anywhere across Canada, go to St.
Yeah,
Francis. Highly
yeah.
recommend it. I've been there a few times. Love it. Um, you talk about growth, and growth comes with many challenges. And unfortunately, you talked about crime, but growth does come with the social issues as well, and challenges around the social aspects of more people, more amenities, more housing. You talk about your identity and what you wanted to be. Where do you see your community going by 2050? Do you see it doubling in size, tripling in size, or even like just 25% more residents in your community by 2050?
I think I'd have to look at the projections, but I think we're on an upward trend for sure.
Would you be okay with that?
If it's done right, if it's done right, I
I
think,
love it. I love a politician who's willing to tell me the answers that I'm looking for.
yeah, if it's done right, I think it'll be okay. We would have, like I'm looking in my backyard right now because there's a field there that could be developed and it would be contiguous. And then same thing with going west of town. Um,
So would you
there's other
say
things.
if I went
Yeah.
to your community today and I asked 100 people, would you say that growth was their top priority for their residents of for those who were listening to this, the counselor just shook his head a little bit, so I'm assuming no.
I don't know. Here's the funny part. We're actually in the process. This is going to be into. I know you're going to ask the follow-up question for the what we're looking or what we've done well, and one of them is going to be the fact that we've now set up a strategic plan, and with that strategic plan, hopefully it gives the residents their chance to engage with us and really tell us what they want moving forward. So I don't know if personally I can't think of if it's ever been done before in our RM. So it's going to be great to have this plan written out, and I'm hoping for a very thorough plan. So
So you're just starting that process in 2025.
it's well we've been thinking about it for 2 years now, and then just with the way government works, it's been okay. Now we're getting it done, and we've now secured a contractor to get it done for us, and we're going to be moving forward with it. So
So
excited for it.
what are you hoping to hear? Are you just hoping to hear honest, unabashful comments from your community about where they want to see the community go and what the challenges that the community faces and the opportunities, the threats?
Yeah, I want to know the now and the future because I can't make decisions. I don't want to make decisions on where I want the RM to go. I want it to be what the people want. And I think I can't speak for all my council or all of council, but I get the general consensus. That's what everybody wants is we want to be there for the people to make sure that the town is what the people want it to be and people will be engaged to come live here too. So hopefully,
So so we're talking about accomplishments and opportunities that your community has. And we know every community has its challenges, and growth seems to be the big priority for a big challenge for a lot of municipalities across Canada. You talk about the strategic priorities and how that could be a strength and an opportunity for your community, but what are the accomplishments that you are proud of as a counselor when you look at the RM and you go, you know what, we have our challenges, but we've got this going right for us?
I start off by saying our council. Our council is awesome. There's the Reeve and the three other wards. All councillors are the way that they approach things, the way that they speak. Personally, as a younger guy, I'm learning tons from those four. So it's been great for me. Decisions aren't turned into arguments or fights. They're a decision. We move forward. So it's been a great experience.
Have some experience by watching other council meetings where people do get arguments there, counselors, because
through
I've seen a few.
through networking, I'm learning that we are very lucky.
You guys are. So you talk about your council being a good a strength that your community has. From a community perspective, what do you see that's going right in your community?
There's some things that our council can't take credit for, but we're managing now. One of them is the fiber project. So previous council, which some of our council members were part of, but the fiber project brought that fast internet to the whole RM during just actually just before COVID. So that gave the opportunity for people to have that good internet, to work from home, to have meetings from home, everything along those lines.
Wait,
So
the RM has their own internet?
we have our own fiber project. Yes.
How? Wow, that's
Yeah, it was a
huge.
big undertaking.
I know a lot of municipalities are currently looking at that opportunity in here in Alberta and even in Saskatchewan because, especially in rural communities, they just don't have them.
Yeah,
By the sounds of it, buy-in from the community is
huge.
amazing.
Yeah. So once again, I wasn't on previous council, but just speaking with them, it sounded like that was the priority going into that election. So that was their focus on that term, and they made it happen. So good on them. It has been a great project for us.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah.
Before you brought up the word twice in this interview already, and you said you were a young counselor. Now, how young is young? Because I'm looking at you and I'm like, you're probably what, 38, 39, or are you
You almost
much
got it bang
younger?
on, 37.
Look at that. That's
Yeah.
not young in the grand scheme of things. Do you think more people around your age need to get involved in municipal politics?
100%.
How so?
Um, just the fact that, like, yeah, we have families. Yeah, it's busy. But if we leave it to the people that are either retired or close to retirement that have more time because their kids are out, then that's one of what I mean. If we have a good strategic plan and if council, I trust our council, but if other communities, if they have these councils that are dysfunctional, if you don't get involved, if you don't let your voice known, then you're leaving it up to a generation that their values might not align with ours, or they might not be with the same time as ours. And you got to respect all groups, not just the the one group type thing. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out for these younger people to get involved. I'd like to see even younger get involved. Never mind.
I would too, because I was just recently at the last AMM convention in November in Winnipeg. We kept on missing each other. I know that you saw me, but I think I saw you once, and we just didn't have the opportunity to actually sit down and chat. And but we're glad we're doing it now. And nothing against the group, the demographic at that convention, but it seems like there's a lot more older people in those rooms, in those breakout rooms, or even in the main hall, convention hall. Do you get a sense that you're able to identify younger people at through AMM to work alongside and say, how are you viewing this through a 37-year-old perspective, or how are you viewing this through a 27 year old perspective, or are you feeling like you're doing it alone? Because on your council, and I'm speaking just by looking at the demographic of your council makeup, a little bit of an older demographic, so you don't really have that younger perspective to rely on. So they may be looking at you and going, what should we do as a younger guy? And you might go, oh, I'm just one person.
I have networked with some younger members from other councils, and it's been great. One of them is Clayton. He ran for.
Clayton Canart, the Reeve
Yeah,
of Wallace Woodworth.
yeah, and he's awesome. I love talking to that guy. He's I think a little bit older than I am, but still awesome. We have the same mind. I could tell the way that he presents himself, the way that he campaigned, everything that he did was very similar to what I would have approached. So it's fun to see that.
So why should people get involved in municipal politics? Because I painting a very broad stroke here right now, but I was looking recently at the 2022 elections in Manitoba, and like every other province right now, more and more municipalities are going to acclamations. Okay, we're claiming these wards, and not a lot of people are getting involved. For you, and we talked about it earlier, but I want to sort of wrap it up before we turn to the last segment, is why should people finally say, okay, maybe we should put our name on the ballot and not just let the acclamations happen?
That's a double-edged sword here again, because I think we also need to be doing a good job at letting people know what they're getting into as well. because you don't want that one horse. What's that saying called? One trick pony or whatever. You
Yeah.
don't want that one issue
Can I
that
say it's
someone's
ironic that you use that as the community that is literally
white
known
horse.
for the white horse?
Maybe a
Continue.
little bit of planning there, but yeah. Um, you don't want them to have that one idea and then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, I have 4 more years ahead of me. So you want to make sure that they understand this is a 4 year term. You have to have the best interests of the RM in your back corner. Like you have to think of them first, and you want to make sure that they're engaged that way. Uh, the same way that Barry knocked on my door, I think even as council, we need to do a better job at getting out there and inspiring people to sit at that table. So it's kind of a multifaceted approach as well. You need education, you need commitment, you need people to get engaged, and trying to find that balance of how to get it all done.
But at the same time, and I'm going to play a little devil's advocate with you here for a second, counselor, but you don't need all that though at the same time. You don't need the education. You need the education of what the municipality does, understandable, but
Yeah,
you don't need to be a lawyer, you don't need to be a
no.
paramedic, you don't need to be a firefighter. You could be a farmer. You could be what you could be just a school student who's now 18 who wants to run and give back to his community. How do I ask this question without sounding like a complete
The way
idiot?
what I meant through education was like the RM can put out an educational pamphlet of this is what council is,
Yeah.
so that people are informed. That's kind of what I meant. It wasn't so much
Okay.
of like background education. It was educating the
That
public on what the role is.
and the time commitment. Because
Yes.
I can imagine you have probably spent a lot more time than you thought going into this of reading reports, attending
Yeah.
council meetings, attending committee meetings.
Yeah. It's busy.
It certainly is. I want to turn to my last subject, and this is the most important one because I like tourism. I love tourism. I love touring communities. Manitoba is on my list of trying to get to a little bit more. Last time I was in Manitoba, it did not end well for me. So
Uh-oh.
this year, hopefully, I can get back in there and I can actually explore a little bit longer. But I have been to the RM. What are the hidden gems in your community that people need to go see if they're passing through the RM or taking a day trip to the RM?
So the beauty of a day trip is we have Beaudry Park that borders our southeastern RM border, and they have snowshoeing, cross country skiing, snowmobiling in the winter. In the summer, you can go fishing, hiking, and it's literally outside people's back doors in Winnipeg. So it's not far. Come see what beauty nature is right outside your back door, basically. Uh, Other than that, we have a whole bunch of plaques. Like St. Francis was one of the first incorporated RMs. So I think it was 1880 roughly. And it was a group of 8 plus one prior to that. So we're the first group of 2 incorporated RMs. So we have a rich history. There's a whole bunch of plaques all the way from the number 1 all the way down the 26, which is also the historic number 1 highway. So
Yeah.
that's a beauty drive on its own. There's a website that shows all the plaques. If you Google plaques in Manitoba, it'll tell you where they all are throughout the whole RM. So it's just neat to see the history of all the plaques and everything that happened in our RM because we were one of the first. So it's fun.
And when I talked to your Reeve at the AMM convention in Brandon, and I mentioned it to him, but we jokingly said the white horse, but it has a significant history as well, and some sort of Canadian lore around
Yep.
sort of this white horse. And when I go there, every time I've driven through, even if it's going to Ontario or back from Ontario, I always stop at the White Horse because it is such a unique story of this horse being sort of a sort of deity, not deity, I shouldn't say deity, but sort of an idol within not even First Nations communities, but also within the settler community as well.
Yep.
So
It was the wedding gift that had a vengeance of a turn.
hopefully the vengeance is gone now in 2025.
We
Um,
hope so.
you talked about the hidden gems. What's the one spot in the community that you go to? Where in the community can you go and just let it all go? Because you have a pretty stressful job, and on top of that, you're a counselor, and that's a pretty stressful job. So where do you go at the end of the day to just let it all go and decompress?
We have it's kind of where I grew up in St. Francis is right across from our park. and we have just a beautiful big park in the middle of town, and it's kind of it. You're I always get the sense of camping when you're there. You got the nice trees all around you. It's very green in the summer. Uh, Kids can play. You hear the kids' laughter. So that's kind of my sit down, relax. It's like camping without a lake, unfortunately. We
What
have no
what
lakes
park
close to us, but
what park was that?
it's just the St. Francis Park. It's
Of
right in the middle. It's kind of right in the center of town, basically.
I think I know it quite well because
Yeah.
I think I've stopped there for a few for a
Yep.
picnic or two.
Yeah.
Um, so my final question for you before I let you go, because I'm cautious of time here, is the $1 million question, and that is, in your opinion, what makes the RM such a unique place to live, to work, and to raise a family?
What makes it unique? That's a good question. We
Every
are,
counselor should be able to answer it.
yeah, we are, for lack of a better term, it's like a campground. Like I said, it's a tight knit small community, but we're still close enough to the city. So if you have to go grab something, if you have to go to the hospital, anything like that's not too far. And we have our town that if when you read online, everybody looks out for each other, and that hasn't gone away, and I hope that never does. So it is that tight community feel, close to the city, that you can raise a family in, that is, knock on wood, safe, and I hope it remains safe for the foreseeable future. But that's what we're at right now.
Counselor Bryan, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for sitting down and doing this. I always get so much out of these conversations, and today was no exception. So thank you so much for serving your community and being part of the show.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Cross Border Interviews. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights from one of Canada's municipal leaders. To stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite platforms or by visiting crossborderinterviews.ca. And for even more content and learn more about today's community and municipal leader, please, again, visit crossborderinterviews.ca. Now, your support means the world to us. So share this episode with your friends, your family, or your community and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you next time here on Cross Border Interviews. Till then, everyone.